Alright, here we are. Put away my headphones here. Alright, so, let me move this guy out of the way so it's not all tunnel-like. Alright, so, excuse me. This week, welcome to week 3. Make sure you can see this. Alright, so, very first thing you want to do is obviously watch this video. You've already gotten this far if you're already watching the video. So, let me move this down so you can see my face. Alright. Once you finish the video, we're going to go back and revisit equity theory. So make sure that you do the reading and watch the video, because this is the video is actually kind of taking place in between habits 3 and 4. Right? You have habits 1, 2, and 3, which you read last week, and now we're moving on to habits 4, 5, 6. But there is this small area of about 10-15 pages. And it's actually assigned to read. If you read it, great, that's fantastic. But if you don't, because it's not assigned, and honestly I don't want to assign it because I don't think you guys want another 15-20 pages, I wanted to make sure that you had some guidance on the foundation, and equity theory is kind of the foundation for everything talked about in 4, 5, and 6, and I'll explain why in this video. And of course, whenever you get here, there'll be a video here called Equity Theory Revisited, and it'll be a YouTube video. One of the things that I realized I did just like 2 seconds before I started this video is that I left my screen like this, and so the only thing you can see as far, because I'm lecturing on the board behind me, but it's kind of a smaller board. So what I want to do real quick is just blow this up so that you can see what it was I was talking about, because you can hear what I was talking about, but you may not have seen what I wrote down because it was such a small window. So go ahead and pause the video, and if you need to write these things down, that way you can see what I'm talking about here. And you may need to come back to this video and see it a little better to know actually what I'm talking about here, because right now it's probably not going to make any sense. But when you watch this video, you'll see the Equity Theory Revisited. When you watch that video, you're going to see what I'm talking about. So go ahead and write this stuff down so that you can have a better idea what I'm talking about when you get to that video. And let me make sure there's something else I need to tell you about that video. I think we're good. As soon as I make this smaller. Oh wait, there we go. So now, once you watch that video, then you're going to want to come down here, and now it's time for the actual reading assignment. First thing you're going to want to do, complete the reading assignment after you watch the video, or maybe before. It really doesn't make too much difference. These two kind of go together. And that's habits 4, 5, and 6. I already mentioned that. Now afterwards, your job is to do a couple things. Of course, the first one is the whole class discussion. So go ahead and open that. And here, there we are. In 200 words, basically you're going to describe a problem that you're having at school, or at home, or at work. And I want you to think about, with regard to habits 4, 5, and 6, think about the problem, describe it to us, in 200 words, and think about one of the habits that you could implement and hopefully change this problem. If you could implement any of the, well, let's stick with 4, 5, and 6. If you could implement habit 4, habit 5, or habit 6, do you think it would make this problem any better? And if so, how? So 200 words to do that. And then, of course, explain to me, again, what the problem is, which of the habits you think you could apply to solve the problem, and then, third, how is that going to actually solve that problem? So that's for the 200 words. Now, there's also a smaller 100-word assignment attached to this, because this is a discussion board. So everything you post up here, make sure you listen to this part clearly. Everything you post up here, everybody in the class is going to be able to see. So don't post up anything in there that you don't want other people to know, because I'm not going to be the only one that sees this one. Because the next part is for you to go through and read someone else's post, and then I want you to think about which habit do you think this person could implement in order to solve their problem, or at least make the problem a little better. And so I want you, in 100 words, to say, I would choose habit 4, and habit 4 is this, and I would implement it in this way. So basically tell them how could they implement whichever habit you choose, and how would it essentially solve the problem, or potentially solve the problem, because it may not solve it, but it may at least make it a little better, right? So that's what this assignment is, as the discussion. After you get through that, there's 2 other assignments. Both of them are just as small. Thinking win-win in your professional relationships. So go ahead and click on that one. Now this one is actually modified from the book, and so speaking specifically of the 4th habit, this is a question from the back of the book, but it's changed a little bit. And so make sure you finish the reading, and make sure you finish the equity theory video before you attempt any of these assignments, because they all kind of need to be They're all backed by the reading. So begin this assignment by thinking about 3 relationships in your life. 1 being professional, 1 being leadership. Okay, and if you can't think of something like it's not a professional leadership, that's okay. It could be, you know, a parent role. It could be maybe a friend role. Maybe you're the leader of your group of friends, or maybe in some manner you're a leader in that role. Or it could be, I don't know, maybe your brothers and sisters. Maybe you're kind of the leader there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional leadership role, but find a leadership role that you kind of fall into. So 1 has to be professional, 1 has to be leadership. Could it be a professional leadership? Sure. But overall you still need 3 relationships to kind of describe here. And so with these relationships in mind, think about the emotional bank account concept, the one that I put up there. And how, you know, equity theory and how it leads into the emotional bank account. You might even talk about the love tank, so to speak. And I want you to think about the balance between these 3 relationships. Think about how much effort you put in, or how much energy you put into these, versus, or how much gas you put into these tanks, versus how much the other person does. Okay, and so think about that. And do you give more, or do you take more? And so think about that. Complete the assignment. Write down 10 ways in which you could give more in each of these 3 relationships. So if you're looking at with your kids, and granted, you probably already do give more into that relationship, but what are some ways that you could give more? And so write 10 ways in which you can give more into each of these 3. So 30 ways total, but 10 for each relationship, right? And so that's that assignment. And so if you have a relationship where you're not sure how you can get the 10 ways, maybe that's not a good relationship to pick. Maybe pick something else that you could clearly, or maybe easily think of 10 things that you could do to give more energy into that relationship, to fill that tank, or fill that seesaw, fill your side of the seesaw. So that's the second one, thinking win-win. The last one is what's the problem? And so here, what I want you to do, this is actually also adapted, I think, from the book, if I remember correctly. I want you to pick one of these videos. One's from The Walking Dead, one's from The Avengers, one's from Breaking Bad. And they're basically argumentation videos, where there's kind of high tension, people are arguing, things going on. But the thing is I want you to watch it 2 times. The first time you watch it, I want you to watch it with no sound. Okay? And so when you're watching, for instance, if you watch the Breaking Bad, write down the emotions that are communicated without the words. So even though there's no words there, and hopefully, I mean, if you haven't seen it, that's probably even better. So I would probably pick one of these that you haven't seen. That way it's a little bit easier, or a little bit more authentic whenever you go in and you start looking at what the emotions are. Because if you've seen the video, you kind of know what the emotions are. So if you've seen all of them, obviously that's fine, but try to pick one that you haven't seen if you can. But the idea here is to watch it without sound, and then pick up on those nonverbal communications and tell me what you think the emotion is that's kind of going from one person to the other. So pick one person and say, this person feels this way. Decide if one person was more interested in the conversation, so tell me that, and then write down the things that you just generally noticed. Okay, and then so hold on to those notes because you're going to need them. After you've watched it once without sound, now and you've written down all these things, now you can go back and you can watch it with sound, okay? Because now what I want you to do is I want you to, let's see here, what was it? Oh, right, and so I want you to go back and watch it again with sound, and now I want you to think about which one of the responses, the autobiographical responses that Covey talks about in I think it was Habit 5. Think about those 4. And of course, pick that same person, the one that you wrote down emotion for before, and the one that you talked about whether they were more interested, their interest level. You wrote about their interest level, and you talked about the things that you noticed in the conversation from that person. Look at that same person, and now as you're able to listen to the sound, think about which of the 4 autobiographical responses that person's exhibiting. So if they're talking, if they're maybe just advising, right? But that's not what they want, or maybe they're just probing, but that's not what the other person wants, right? So think about that and tell me which one of these 4 that person's exhibiting. So to complete this assignment, describe your observations in 250 words. That is these observations up here, the ones without sound, and then also the ones with sound. Describe the emotions and the interest level you observe with your silent viewing, along with the autobiographical responses that you heard in the sound version, right? finally, oh yeah, and so lastly, what I want you to do is explain what empathic listening would have looked like in this situation. So if you're talking about Walking Dead, maybe what could, whoops, I guess we're all going to watch it. What could, I don't know, Daryl have done that would have looked like empathic listening, which is going to be really awkward in this because neither one of these two guys are really good at empathic listening. So, but I want you to think about that. What would it look like? Because that is a very difficult relationship if a person has zero empathic listening ever. And so these two guys, I would say, are a good example because they rarely do. And whenever they do, it's actually a very significant part of the show. So anyways, I want you to talk about that. Again, kind of in summary, in 250 words, tell me the thoughts you had about the silent viewing. Tell me about the autobiographical responses that you observed in the sound version, and then tell me what would empathic listening look like from the person that you're focusing on in these viewings. Other than that, I think that's all we have. Those 3 assignments along with the reading, and that's it. So if you have any questions, be sure to call, text, email, whatever you need to do. But if not, I will see you guys in week 4.